Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg, and your Colonial Champion, Sean McCourt. Welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast!
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again to another exhilarating edition of the Court-Martail Podcast, simulcasted with TAW Gaming and the Totally Awesome Podcast. I am your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, here with the proprietor of TAW Gaming himself. I'm not even going to get into the extravagance here because we've got so god-diddly darn much to talk about. And because we're not in the first 2 minutes yet, I cannot profane my way through this mundane because it is the spectacular show of shows. And now that my filibuster is over, Joshageddon can finally take over. How you doing, buddy?
You know that album or two that you did called Mixed Bag?
I do.
That's kind of how I feel right now.
The links are in the description.
Yes, somewhere. There's a cavalcade of links and descriptions and even more links and no Zeldas yet.
Not yet.
But welcome to the Totally Awesome Podcast. Once again, we're simulcasting here with our friends over at the Court-Martail Podcast. It is just the two of us today because Skylar is elsewhere.
Skylar wanted to be here so much, but he is actually ascended into heaven because he just died of happiness knowing that he was right about The Rock all along. And we and we plebes here on Earth have finally come to the realization that he has, and he has been basking in the glory of him being correct. And so much that he went right to heaven. Didn't even do the dying and funeral part. He's just right at heaven. So he'll be back to talk about it and another time. But
I hate that finally he's stolen this gimmick of mine. Usually it's my gimmick for me to have an opinion on something, and time slowly proves me correct. So now Skylar's stealing that from me.
Well, it wasn't that slow. It was just one calendar year. Usually it takes 4 or 5 for us to come around on your ideas.
Yeah. So he's sped run mine.
That's right. He's doing the abbreviated version, the abridged version, perhaps.
Yeah.
But there is no bridge too far for our good friend Skylar Greenberg to cross and tell us how he feels. So if he does decide to airdrop some notes, we will read them. But we will see how the night progresses, and we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to try to cram, at least in the TAW half of this, both of the nights into one night. Now with CMP, we might do a let's take a quick break and then resume, and then you'll get a second podcast to kind of break it up a little bit, because I'm assuming it's going to be a while between the two of us while we're discussing all of this lovely subject matter and how we feel about it and how much The Rock can go figgity fuck himself.
Yeah, with 14 matches. There's nothing to sneak.
Yeah, I know. This, or as the layman's term understand it, one AEW pay-per-view. So we've got one AEW pay-per-view to talk about, but it happens to be the show of shows, the greatest show in Las Vegas, and that is faint praise, considering that every time they go to Vegas, they seem to not leave with what they think they came with, or they were going to get out of it, at least in my opinion. But let's talk about night 1 and night 2. Overall, your thoughts on WrestleMania weekend?
Like I said at the
Mixed bag.
outset, we made 2 albums, both of them called Mixed Bag, although one of them was called Mixed Bag 2. This show was weird, in all honesty. This was a strange WrestleMania because night 1, I thought was decent. I thought it was fine. It felt more like a B show than WrestleMania. And then the main event saved the entire show, for me. And then night 2 was the opposite, where the show was great up and down, and then the main event nearly ruined it. And I'm just like, can we not just have a show where the first everything else is good and it ends good? Were we spoiled too much last year?
100%. 100%. Are you kidding me?
We're spoiled so rotten.
We were spoiled so hard because that was the sign of good faith of like times are changing. But that doesn't mean that that was going to be a standard that they could possibly meet all the time. Hell no. That was a special happenstance that is very rare, honestly. I mean, we didn't see it for WWE for the longest time, but they finally gave us what was coming. And now,
I mean, on the show, on both shows, there was more good than bad. But in my opinion, like the worst, the thing I was looking forward to most the entire weekend was John Cena and Cody Rhodes, mostly because I was very curious as to what they were going to do.
yeah.
It quickly turned into my least favorite thing on both nights.
Well,
But
it was. Yeah, we're going to
later
get
on.
into all of this, and we're going to try and keep this relatively short. And while I love Skylar, doing a 3-man booth on a 14-match card was going to lend itself for this going the length of an actual AEW show. So, so for the interest of not doing that, we'll try to kind of move this along as best as we can. My overall thoughts on the night, though, on the nights, was I actually really enjoyed this WrestleMania. All up and down, I really enjoyed this WrestleMania. I thought all the matches were actually quite good. The wild thing is, it's amazing how much a good crowd can make a difference. And it's amazing how the vibes of how a match is going down can make a difference. And because all in all, I think that they gave us 2 very good nights of action. But some finishes were questionable.
Absolutely.
Some finishes were questionable. And some of the matches were otherwise good matches that were ruined by an otherwise dead crowd.
Yeah.
And
that was more of a problem with night 1 than night 2.
yes, but I think that both nights actually were quite solid, but I'm not saying that the way that people feel about the show as a result of that main event doesn't put kind of a poison mushroom into the batch. You know, it one spoiled apple ruins the batch or whatever the adage is, but I understand why people would be upset at it when otherwise I thought it was a very good main event. But
you have no idea. People were furious.
Rip shit. Now,
with this main event. No, like most people were like with night 1, okay show saved by the main event. What pissed off people the most was the main event of night 2.
Yeah.
Mostly people are furious with The Rock.
Well,
Some people are mad at Triple H. But most people are furious with The Rock.
And I can't wait to join them. And we are going to save a special time at the end for our Rock promos.
Yeah.
So just wait, folks. If that's what you're aiming for, and depending on whether you're watching this on the Court-Martail podcast, that might be on the second half of this WrestleMania review. So stay tuned. But let's get into the action. First of all, we got Paul Rudy Giuliani's tan Heyman. And he was tan. Boy, he definitely got the spray tan. Uso comes walking down. Got a split reaction a little bit. Welcome to Fiend Mania. God, that song drove me crazy all weekend.
It's been driving me crazy for months now.
True.
The first time we heard it was last year. And I was like, wow, that song sucked. And now I'm so grateful. I think one of my favorite things coming out of this WrestleMania is after today, I'm never going to have to hear that again.
Yeah, being done with, well, unless he becomes a wrestler.
No, just shut the fuck up.
No, you think? Skylar once said that just wait until we get Travis Scott versus Bad Bunny on a pay-per-view.
Yeah, that'll be an immediate shoe-in for Crapley for worst match or whatever.
I don't think any of us will end up watching it. I think we'll all skip it. But
maybe one where rooting for someone or both to get seriously injured won't exactly be the worst thing.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of people who are almost seriously injured, Triple H comes out to do the WrestleMania promo. You know, the Welcome to WrestleMania promo, and I have to say, there was this really funny. He gives this promo about like, this is when the future is the now, and now we're experiencing now. And it reminded me of that moment in Spaceballs when they're like watching themselves And they're like, go back to, wait, where are we? Now. Everything that happens now is happening now. What happened to then? We passed it. When? Just now. We're in now.
Yeah. That's such a good reference.
And yeah, it just cracked me up. And then, welcome to WrestleMania, and everyone clapped, kind of. As this first night of Vegas, this crowd sucked ass.
Whenever they go to Vegas, the crowd is ass. Can we never go to Vegas again? Just the entire state of Nevada.
I would love to be done with it.
Yeah.
I would love to be done with it. If we never see another Vegas wrestler, you can go there for a B show. I don't care about that. Go there for, I don't know, the Great Balls of Fire. You still do that show, right? And go there for that. But not for WrestleMania, because it was, I mean, to be fair to night 2, much hotter crowd.
Yes.
Much hotter crowd for night 2. But the first night...
I got caffeinated before night 2 started.
Yeah, the first night, everybody was just sleeping at the wheel. And there were some good matches that happened on night 1. We get the Raiders cheerleaders in the color guard coming out for not really main event Jey Uso versus Gunther.
Can we just start calling him Curtain Jerker Jey Uso?
Yeah, Jerker Jey. Oh, wait, maybe we shouldn't use that. Maybe we shouldn't use that.
It's me, Oos. Jerker Jey.
Yeah, I just oosed all over the place is more like...
Well, yeah, you were jerking it.
Actually, you know what? That's funny because on night 2 there was that sign that says, I just yeeted. And I thought that was really funny just on that basis. But anyway, what were your thoughts about this matchup?
Well, firstly, I will say we were criticizing the crowd. The stage setup, I thought looked gorgeous.
There were fans that were seated on that stage setup.
And I don't even want to know how much those tickets cost. Can you imagine?
It probably more than my salary.
Probably
I would bet.
More than any amount of money I've ever had at any point in my life.
Yeah.
Down to the collective amount of money that I've spent on Monster Energy and McDonald's.
Yeah, I think my Yu-Gi-Oh card budget would not even buy and that's a pretty extensive, when you start buying the cardboard crack, that's what we call it there on the mean streets of Battle City. But in any case, I wish Skyler were here. He would at least go boo at all of my jokes.
Don't worry, he'll leave some comments in the comments.
He will. He sure will. He sure will.
But as for this match, I thought it was a decent opener. Considering what we got, it was perfectly placed at the beginning. Gunther was trying his best, and Jey was there.
Well,
which is solid.
Well, I thought that this match was actually pretty good considering who was in it. For Jey Uso, he was trying to diversify himself a little bit.
Yeah,
and you could tell he was trying to beat the reputation that people were saying. And I could sense that he was trying hard here. Gunther is terrific as always. I really liked most of this match until the finish.
Until the finish.
Until the finish. But most of the rest of this was actually very good.
Jey pulled out a really good-looking German suplex. And he did a decent powerbomb.
There was quite a few things that he got in here that I liked.
He only did like 1 or 2 super kicks, which made me, I was like, who are you and what have you done with any of the Usos?
Yeah, it was just at the end. Well, because Gunther's leading it, and I'm sure that Gunther helped put together the match, But, I love the collar and elbow tie-up is acknowledged for the first part of the match. Somebody, for the love of God, keep Alicia Taylor away from wool sweaters and light sockets.
She was horrific on this. There was one, I think it was the opener for night 2, where she stuttered saying the hometown of someone, like Tennessee or whatever she said, and I laughed out loud.
I will say this. While she is desperately trying to be Sam Irvin, and you can tell she's desperately trying to be Sam Irvin, I did kind of have to laugh because Alicia Taylor does have the deep bass voice that Sam Irvin kept trying to clench her fist to get. Alicia Taylor has it. It's just that she's now sounding like Sam Irvin trying to sound like Alicia Taylor.
Yes. She's so bad.
I don't even dislike this woman. I don't know this woman at all. But for the love of God, her hair is ridiculous. It's somebody keep this woman away from light sockets. She must have get cobwebs just walking through dusty hallways.
It looks like she stuck her tongue in a light bulb socket.
I know. That's a lot. It's a lot. So I'm just saying.
For this match, there was one thing in particular that I did not like. I actually did not mind the finish. What I was kind of annoyed by, the belt shot towards the end. I liked the belt shot, and I liked the way they did it. Everything was timed perfectly.
Yep.
Jay choking out Gunther would have worked so much better if Jay was covered in blood.
Agreed.
This match and that win needed some juice, especially considering what happened to Jimmy.
Especially considering we didn't really get any juice on the whole weekend.
No.
Except for Tiffany, but that was not on purpose.
Yeah, except Tiffany, but that was hard way.
Yeah. But that's actually, I didn't think about that. But that's for all of these blood feuds they had, where was the blood?
Yeah.
But...
And I kind of get it, considering this was the opener, and that's not something you should really be doing at the beginning.
Right.
Still, it would have gone over better. It would have made Jay look tougher if he was covered in blood choking out Gunther.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And actually, you could kind of argue that the placement of this match, if you put this on, say, 4th.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. 4th in this situation is actually a good spot. Because you've got a crowd that's had a couple of matches to cool down, and boy, did they. And this would be that would be a time to kind of wake people up with a good big match in between where you could get juice. Mm-hmm. And then cool down with a couple other matches before the main event, if you're not going to have this as a main event, but in any case, I did like when they did like the body slam tease where they couldn't get it to then Jay finally getting it, but then there was a great chop that quickly regains the advantage for Gunther, and then the boos, that came right after that. I never really liked chain spots. This is a criticism of Gunther, actually, and he's not the only guy who does this. Like, Kevin Owens used to do this a lot. I've never really loved having chain spots, like 3 big moves in quick succession, like the superplex into the quick drop kick into the power bomb without any selling in between, and just picking them back up and hitting that. That's just a pet peeve of mine. But it's Gunther. What am I going to do? Mm-hmm. The power bomb Rana with the Uso splash got a 2 count, which was cool.
That was the most well-done Rana on the show, by the way.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true. That's what I mean. He was trying. There was no hot dogging at all from Jay.
Yeah.
It was so restrained on his part. Like, there was not a super kick yet in the timeline we're talking about. Then we get the belt shot with the Gunther splash. Mm-hmm. 2 count.
Which was a good near fall. There were a few points where I was like, oh my God, are they going to have Gunther win?
Yeah. It looked it. I wasn't sure. I mean, I honestly wasn't sure. Because
I was about 95% sure that Jay was going to win. But there was like 1 or 2 moments in the match where it was like, oh my God, Gunther might win this.
Well, it seemed like it was like Jay was such a shoo-in to win it, considering the story, that this might be the one time when they decide to like change up the story and just swerve people. I thought maybe this is where they'll take, the different direction. But they didn't. And I'm not saying that I'm upset with Jay finally winning this belt and that this now beginning, this is the peak. Yeah. And I'm glad we're at the peak. And,
now we're going to start the falling action.
Yeah. And Jey Uso hit a German and a power bomb, which were nice. Then we get the super kicks. And the spears.
Credit to Jay, he saved it till the end.
He did. This
was not the great super kick bonanza of last year.
No, super kick. And the spears actually looked halfway decent.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and he needed to have a better Mania outing than that.
Yeah. Yes.
And then we get the 3 Uso splashes. Now, for me, The 3 Osu splashes would have been plenty. Just pin the dude and let it be that. That's it. And I also think the crowd would have popped a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because that would have been, I think, a little bit more of a definitive win.
Yeah, putting him in the sleeper and the quick tap kind of had the, oh, it's over, yay!
Yeah, and it didn't quite have the same landing that I thought it should have for Jay. Because Jay needed to definitively beat Gunther.
Yeah.
Like, he needed to definitively beat him. But this weird thing of, like, Gunther doesn't like being choked is, like, canonically a thing with him.
Yeah.
Because of this feud he had with Ilya, where Ilya got a quick choke tap out. So, I don't know what's going on with that. Very vanilla in bed, I suppose.
And missionary position.
Hey, you know what?
Night.
Hey, when your name is Gunther and you're the world's champion, you were the world's champion. Who cares? You know.
Maybe Austrians just don't like to get that freaky.
I don't know. I honestly can't say. But when it happened, I was like, what I wrote down in all caps was, "Wait, what? Hold on. Let's talk this finish over. Let's talk about this."
Honestly, I was kind of like, I don't hate it, but I don't know if I would have done that.
Well, I don't think it necessarily damages Gunther terribly, but it's just, to the crowd, that's a surprise. Like, of all the people to make Gunther submit, it's Jay? I don't know. It's, of all this, like, submission technicians you could have put in with him, like a Gable, or somebody else who, I don't know. I don't know. It's just, I get why they did it. I don't know, man. I just didn't like this.
Would have worked better with Juice.
It would have worked better with Juice.
Could you imagine that visual of a bloody Jay?
Yes.
Tapping out Gunther?
Yeah.
That would have been great.
That, I think, would have been better, and also not in that quick a time.
Yeah.
It's just the speed of the tap. It's just, and a speed of the tap to Jey Uso. of all the people, it's just, I don't know. I had come to terms with Jay winning the belt, but just that way, the world title finishes on this WrestleMania really left a lot to be desired.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
But to be fair,
I didn't hate it. I just would have preferred a little bit of blood. But I also think, like, because they said, like, while with the one thing they've been doing since Lee Fitting took over, like, the stats, this is only the third time that Gunther has lost a match, period.
Yeah.
We're talking about Survivor Series 2019.
Didn't happen.
I don't think this hurts him at all.
No, I don't think it does either. And that's the thing. Is Gunther is always doing exactly what he needs to be doing for him. So I'm sure that this is, what I said at the time was, like, I'm sure this is leading to some sort of character development with him, you know, where this is going to really mess with him psychologically. And I'm down for that. I'm down to see where they're going to go with this, with how Gunther's doing, because he does need a kind of a fresher coat of paint, to be fair. And I think having this sort of level of insecurity, that's a weird thing to say, but I think that's going to actually be helpful to Gunther long term. It's just, God, I don't know about this finish, man. I don't hate it, right? But I will say this: I would have rather Gunther tapped than Cody get choked out. So fine. If it had to come to that, I will take this. And know that they are probably coming up with something interesting for Gunther down the road, because they clearly feel very much that their investment is worth their time in Gunther.
Hey, this is the third straight WrestleMania where he's come in as champion. Yeah,
that's a good point. That's a really good point. Even though his WrestleMania record is leaving a lot to be desired.
Yeah, 1 and 2.
Not great. But we would normally say, what did Skyler have to say about this, and read some incoherent letters, but unfortunately he's not here. Skyler, we miss you.
Come back to us.
Come back to us. Send notes. Send a message in a bottle. Yeah.
Tell us about how you were right and we were wrong, and how we can suck your dick.
Yes, well, I don't know about that last part, but the first two, I don't know about the finish of that one, just like this match, but...
We want to yeet with you, Skyler.
In any case, well, while we were yeeting, all of the fans went to go eating, so nobody gave a flying fuck about the next match. And it's sad, because these guys busted their ass in this match.
They were laying it in this match. It was the World Tag Team title match, the War Raiders versus the New Day, in a match that, if this took place at WrestleMania 36 in the empty arena, it would basically have had the same like crowd effect.
God, this was sad. Now, to be fair, I shouldn't throw stones at the people who went to the concession stand, because I went to take a shower at the first part of this match. I was like, I didn't even know that they were going to be on next, but I was like, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the tag match next, so I'm going to go take a shower. And,
yeah, you're wrong.
And I wasn't wrong. And I came in right as Eric, I think it is, or Hanson, who I know him as, is double squishing the New Day on the ring apron.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, good time to come back in. And, but what I said immediately was not surprised that this is the cool down.
Yeah.
But it was like a freeze over. They didn't cool.
They were trying really hard.
So hard.
The problem is, after the New Day turned on Big E, they kind of had them do, like, them having the New Day come out and not be able to cut promos because the crowd kept booing them. That was great. But then they just kept having them do that, and then they had them lose. And then they had them lose more. And then, like, a month or so went by, and they cooled off. And after they cooled off, then they started winning matches. And now we're here, and no one really cares.
Well, and also they made the fatal mistake of being a tag team.
I can feel the hurt in your soul.
I am in so much pain. I am mourning the death of tag team wrestling. At this point, I'm just hoping that there's that one Undertaker hand that pulls up out of the dirt at some point for tag teams, that they can maybe be helped out of the corpse that they're sitting in right now, because this is just sad. It's just, these guys tried. And just like the Rumble Best of 3 Falls match, these tag teams are trying. But I blame Vince McMahon for this. I blame no one other than Vince McMahon for this, although Triple H has proven that he's got too many single stars to really care about a tag division. Vince McMahon ruined the drawing capability of tag team wrestling.
This strangest thing, honestly, is people reacted more to the women's tag team match the following night than this one.
Well, the women's tag team matches had more matches on premium live events than the regular tag team titles have.
And it was way shittier.
Yeah, it was actually, I didn't hate that match either, but we'll get to that in due time. But it's still, at the same point, these guys, they were doing hand-to-hand tags. That moonsault was a little sketchy, but...
Yeah, he slipped a little and nearly killed Kofi Kingston. That was really scary.
Yeah, he didn't, but it got close.
Yeah, Kofi's lucky.
But the New Day just kept getting squished.
Yeah.
And, I liked the New Day's finish when they were cheating, in a variety of ways, and then Kofi held the leg under the ropes. But the crowd did not care.
Yeah.
And it made it really hard for me to care because I wanted to care. But wouldn't that have been nice if Big E came down and did some shenanigans?
I feel like that's what people have been waiting for ever since they turned on Big E. And honestly, after the Rumble, where neither person from the New Day was in the Rumble to get cost by Big E, and the crowd was under the impression, oh, they're just not doing anything with Big E. That's when people really stopped caring about the New Day.
Well, yeah, because they did that to get heat, but then there was no way that he were going to get their heat back.
Yeah, essentially, like he was.
There was no
kind of
comeuppance.
It's a microcosm of the problem with The Rock that we'll talk about later.
Yes, we will.
It's the same thing, just a smaller version of that, where the person that this thing was built on wasn't there, and now we just have the remnants of something that was cool a couple months ago.
And it makes you wonder, if they weren't going to do anything with that, why would you even do that and then have Big E just walk away?
Triple H needs to stop. Like, one booking issue I've been seeing of his as of late is he'll start something and have no idea where to take it.
It's true. There's a lot of great angles to start things that don't really get an adequate finish.
Yeah, that just kind of exist.
Gable and Otis is a great example of that.
Like, it just exists in the peripheral, the abstract, and like, can you bring it to the forefront? Why are you pushing it to the background? Wrong way, Triple H.
I almost cared about Otis once.
Yeah, stop talking about how much you're in the Hall of Fame and how much you don't like critics. Put something in the foreground, please.
Well, we did see what was put in the foreground, but we still can't see it.
Yeah.
But I don't really have much else to say about this tag match because they proved that it wasn't worth caring about. And
I thought it was fine. It's just
the match was good. The crowd was not.
Yeah, the match was. They tried very hard, and I respect everyone in the match, even though I still don't really care for Xavier Woods that much. Although I like him way more as a heel than an annoying babyface. But the crowd was dead for though. It was kind of sad.
Yeah, not even Xavier Woods' Final Fantasy hair could help that. But I will say, the next match did surprise me.
Me too.
And I was fascinated by this match being booked on this WrestleMania show. I was fascinated as to what was going to happen.
It's Jade Cargill versus Naomi. And I said in my predictions that this needs to be like a couple minute squash, or this might not be that great. Sometimes I'm wrong, and I'm glad I'm wrong. Because they actually went out there for an actual match, and it was actually good.
I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the hell out of this.
Me too. There were some really cool spots in this.
Well, Jade is getting better. Naomi is actually lending herself quite well to being a heel. Mm-hmm. The video package definitely made her sound a lot less like Rikishi than she did live. But
I'm happy that I never have to hear "Feel the Glow" again. One of the most cringy catchphrases of all time.
I know. Now she's caution tape Naomi, but her theme slaps though.
It matches what she's doing.
This is one of the first re-images of a theme where I'm like, okay, all right, I see you. This one I could get behind. And she had the Ginyu Force tips, which was kind of cool. She did. And then this cracked me up. They actually got Jim Cantori to do Jade's entrance from the Weather Channel, that crazy-ass tornado dude.
This was cheesy.
It was so stupid, and I loved it. It was corny in the right way for me. I'm like, you actually got the guy, though. If they had just done this with like a regular schlub or an intern or Brad Maddox, it would have sucked ass. But the fact that they actually paid the money to get the actual Weather Channel guy who does the tornado stuff to do this cheesy-ass intro for Jade, they put the work in for it. I gotta give them credit for that.
It was certainly something. Yeah, when this match was over, I messaged the group chat, that was way better than it had any right to be.
Yeah. I also liked, while Jade was coming down to the ring, Wade Barrett sitting there like, but we're indoors, though. And Michael and Cole and McAfee.
Wade was outstanding on both nights.
And Cole and McAfee were both like, hey, fuck you.
Man.
Yeah, literally. Wade was pretty funny, though. He had his moments during this whole weekend.
Oh, he had one of my favorite moments at the beginning of night 2, which we'll get to.
Yeah. And so, without going spot for spot from this match, I love the sell that Naomi had on the barricade.
Mm-hmm.
And the X Factor on the outside was really nice.
That looked nasty. It was great.
It did. They took their time with this. You know, Jade, you could tell that Naomi was leading it, but Jade is getting better. It's slow, but she's getting better.
It was slow, but the big spots were every bit as impactful as they needed to be.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing the match as a whole was a tad clunky, but not devastatingly so.
Yeah, it was like a struggle where you can kind of tell that Jade is trying not to fuck anything up.
Yeah.
For the most part, she didn't until the end, which we'll get to. But, dude, when she caught Naomi in midair with a jackhammer, that popped.
That was crazy.
That was nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I like the tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, but the knee gave out because they were selling that a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, right before that. But the only thing I didn't love is that Naomi just took too long to set up the stuff up at the top rope for Jade to catch her with the fall-away slam or the... Like, it just took her a long time to get up there and get ready to jump.
And we already saw Jade catch you in midair. We didn't need... Hey, let's do that again, except not as cool.
Well, the difficult thing is that it put Jade in a rough position because Jade is clearly up and she's like trying to sell, but she's not really selling. So she's just waiting there, kind of semi-staggering, so Naomi can just get up and get her thing going. It's like, all right, let's get to the point here.
Yeah.
So, but then we get the Bulldog off the top rope, split leg moonsault, 2 count, and that Bulldog off the top rope was baller.
Yeah, it was great. It was business.
It looked very good. Actually, so did the split-legged moonsault. This was one of the best Naomi's looked, you know, in a while. And then Naomi hit that Impact submission that I forget what they called on Impact that Cole did not know the name of. but it still looked good.
And then we get to the finish, and I scream because Jade tries to do the electric chair spin into the powerbomb. Sean, you know how wrestling is predetermined and you're not actually supposed to murder your opponent, right?
Well, she got close.
She powerbombed this woman with one of the most grotesque-looking powerbombs I have ever seen in my life.
It was pretty intense.
Holy paralysis, Batman.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't land on her neck, but it was close.
As Jim Ross would say, folded her up like an accordion.
Yeah.
And then picked her up and then hit her with Jaded. And I'm like, you already killed her with the powerbomb. I don't think the Jaded was necessary.
Well, to me...
You could very clearly see after the powerbomb, she leaned over and she was like, hey, Naomi, are you still with us? Can I do my finish? Are you alive?
Blink twice if you need help.
Can you feel your toes? Can you feel the glow, Naomi?
Which she did. There's the glow,
Naomi. Don't walk towards it.
But thankfully, there's a storm a brewing. If you feel a lightning bolt up and down your spine, let me know. And, but anyway, I am very... All in all, this match was quite fun.
This was so good. Considering who was involved, this was way better. I did not give either of these two enough credit going in.
And you know what's wild? You want to hear one of the wildest stats I heard leading into the weekend? This match is the first time that there has been a women's match that didn't involve a championship of any sort at a WrestleMania ever.
I assume you're discounting like Playboy bunny pillow fights.
Those were all for titles.
Not all of them. There was one where it was just a Play Bunny pillow fight.
Or a Miss WrestleMania, yeah, but a non-stipulation singles match.
Okay, there we go.
There, but also all of those were stipulation Guga anyway. But no, but this is the first women's singles match that didn't involve a title ever in the history of WrestleMania. And
that is crazy.
That is actually crazy. But I will say, for that kind of first ever, these two delivered. These two really delivered, and I'm proud of both of them because I'm sure a lot of people expected this to be a stinker of a match.
I was one of them. I was like, this needs to be a squash or it's not going to be great, and I was wrong.
Yeah, this was I said this ought to be interesting, and it sure was interesting. And I was impressed with this. I definitely was. And now, let's move on to the United States Championship.
Oh, this match was fun.
It is La Knight versus Jacob Fatu. As this began our look at the cars we have, or the vehicular, and the track record of the vehicles at WrestleMania was very interesting on this evening.
Well, no one got ran over this time.
No, not on this night. This was just nice vehicles arriving. It got a little off the rails, almost literally.
When the Steve Austin cosplayer can drive better than the actual Steve Austin.
Yes, as Steve Austin awoke a Karen. And
it's a lawsuit.
Yeah.
And apparently he accidentally ran over someone in a golf cart backstage.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later on. I hope it was The Rock that he ran over.
Me too.
Although it was probably Rikishi because Rikishi ran him over, but anyway. But speaking of getting run over, Jacob Fatu and LA Knight, I thought these two had a great match. I wasn't really sure where the angle was between these two. Even with the package, I'm like, I don't know if I love this angle that they're doing this with, but I'm not going to complain. It's LA Knight who still gets a pop when the crowd wants to actually wake up. And
when the crowd remembers, hey, we're on a wrestling show, and this is on TV.
Yeah,
this is WrestleMania.
And Jade and Naomi did very well, despite the crowd really not wanting to react to them. But then they eventually did come the end of it. But Vegas was really sitting on their hands for a lot of this.
Dude.
And it's not the fault of any of the people in the ring, because I thought the matches themselves delivered.
LA Knight is really good, but man, Jacob Fatu is so damn good.
He's something else, man.
That was the most perfect Samoan drop that he gave LA Knight in the history of Samoan drops.
Yeah.
Like everyone else should just stop doing them.
Well, and there's a lot of things that Jacob Fatu does incredibly well. I love that belly-to-belly power slam counter that they were doing. You know, LA Knight got a little more desperate with the kicks. I didn't really even write a whole lot on this because I was just enjoying it.
That run up the ropes into the avalanche German was fantastic.
Yeah, that crucifix was nasty.
Yes.
Or at least the way Fatu landed on it, I should say.
They mistimed it by just a hair, and it looked especially nasty.
Yeah, so it looked Jacob Fatu almost just crippled himself. And
yeah. But the spot of this match that made me nearly jump out of my chair, he goes to the mighty moonsault, and LA Knight catches him in midair with the BFT. That was okay.
That was really cool.
At first, I thought it was really cool, and it was. It's just when they started showing the replays, they showed a really close angle, and it looked like LA Knight kind of just barely caught him, and they quickly realized and were like, let's show this from a different angle where it looks better. And I was like, okay, that angle looks better, but it was very close, but I'm glad that he got his hand on the bottom rope and didn't just straight up kick out of it.
I mean, let's be real. Is the RKO that Randy gave to Evan Bourne that much different?
It looked way better. But this still looked cool.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of that one with Evan Bourne. Because he basically barely got up for it. I don't know. I don't feel like it was that much different myself.
That is my favorite RKO of all time.
I know, and I know that you're going to hate the fact that I think that that's a really overrated RKO. Of all the ones that Orton has done, that one did not impress me as much as some of the other ones he's done.
You know what? Your favorite is overrated and not not that one.
Name an RKO for $75. Name a woman.
Name a woman.
There you go. That's a reference for you kids out there. And then Jacob Fatu wins, and Haku was there, which was really cool.
And that reference went right over my head.
That's right. And not even Jimmy on the street would be able to comprehend it as he's pending the lawsuit. But Haku was there. And that was great, because I like Haku. And I don't really have much else to say about this match. It was just a good, solid mid-card match. LA Knight's great. Jacob Fatu's great. Both could be headed to World Championship opportunities down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait to see when they turn LA Knight heel.
I can't wait till they finally pull the trigger on Jacob Fatu getting away from Solo Sikoa.
That's coming, but I want something else for Solo. I want him to be doing something else. I want him to feel important again. They kind of killed him on the first Raw on Netflix. When Roman Reigns just definitively just beat him.
Especially after he had been definitively beaten several times before that. And
it didn't.
Yeah.
I feel like that really hurts Solo, and I feel bad for Solo because I don't think he deserved that. I think that Solo had made a lot of progress last year being the phony tribal chief, and they could have gotten a little more mileage out of that. Because Solo, the heels reactions that Solo were getting were not cemented in just him being there every week. Like, he needed to win those matches.
Mm-hmm.
He needed to win those matches, and he didn't win any of the important ones. He won the 6-man tag at Saudi Arabia.
And the 6-man tag at Money. If it's a 6-man tag, he's got it.
He's got it. Easy.
Yeah.
That's his bread and butter. But that's the thing.
Regular tag matches, no. Singles matches, absolutely not.
Yeah, and I feel for Solo because he's somebody I feel like we were talking about starting and stopping. They went a long way with Solo and then just stopped.
Yeah.
And
it's because they see dollar signs with Jacob Fatu.
Yeah, which I don't disagree with at all. But don't you think that if you were going to get those two away from each other, given the way that Solo lost all his power, that maybe you'd have a match between them here? And then definitively prove, hey, this is the guy we're pushing, and then Solo can go away for a while and then come back in some other capacity. I don't know.
You're not wrong.
That being said, I liked the match. I'm glad that Jacob Fatu is the United States champion. I'm sure he's going to do a lot of good things with it. And LA Knight is actually pretty Teflon, I think, at this point. So we just need to give him something fun to do. The crowd's going to chant with him regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So he's, I'm sure there will be plenty for him to do. I'm guessing he'll be one of those guys that's traded when they do the draft that totally matters. And, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Any final thoughts on this matchup?
I really enjoyed it. They worked really well together, and I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch if they decide to do one.
Agreed. I think they had a pretty good chemistry together. And now, this. I have to say, if this weren't Chad Gable, this could have been a disaster.
I feel like this is where our opinions are going to diverge a bit.
But this is Gable, and this was ridiculous. But I did not hate this match.
The match was fine. I hate the El Grande Americano gimmick so much. Because Chad is good in it. And it is funny. But son of a bitch.
Just use Chad Gable normally. I know.
Right, that is my entire problem.
Yes.
That is so good.
I agree with you there.
They were convinced that he's Santino Marella.
No, they're convinced he's Owen Hart.
Yes, and it is so infuriating. And he lost so many matches last year, and now the only thing he needed to do to start winning matches and to get a match at WrestleMania was to change his name and put on a match.
Was be racist.
Else.
Hey, listen, Chad, we really like you. Can you now be racist? We're gonna acquire AAA, so it's fine. Don't worry about it.
America.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. We got you covered.
I want to like this, but my want of them treating Chad Gable seriously is more intense than my want to like this gimmick.
Yeah, I get that.
He is good at it, but damn it, because it's like the whole thing with Kurt Angle was because he's basically their Kurt Angle.
Yes.
He could be silly, but he could also be an intense ass kicker, and they were able to bounce between both. But with Chad Gable, it's like 5% of the time he's a serious ass kicker, and 95% of the time, shoosh, thank you, I'm racist, thank you.
Well, at least he doesn't say that anymore. Thank God. Does he? I hope not.
And I just my whole rant about him being like he's their Kurt Angle. It was super. We should have known honestly that they were never going to take him seriously, even back in the previous administration of WrestleMania 38, when the person they wanted to be their Kurt Angle belly to belly suplexed him.
Yeah.
Their opinion of Chad has not changed.
Well, the thing is I think that they're giving stuff that Chad is still having fun doing. You know, it doesn't feel like there's misery attached to this. Like, Chad is at least enjoying this gimmick.
It's not as bad as Shorty G.
No. This is something that at least Gable is enjoying. You know, because it's this whole crusade against luchadors, which honestly, having a heel like Chad to get all of these luchadors over is probably why they're having him do this. Because now that they've acquired AAA, they're going to have to pay more attention to Lucha Libre to some degree. And in that respect, having Gable establish people like Penta and Phoenix, even though they both lost to Gable. Or no, I guess Penta beat Gable, didn't he?
Yeah, they both lost at Mania.
Yes. But it's but in any case, I think that's why they're trying to use him for this purpose. It's very silly. It's very silly. I will say this, but I will say part of what makes this so funny is the production value behind it. Like, having a mariachi band while the camera's in sepia tone doing a mariachi version of Stars and Stripes Forever is the funniest thing.
It was.
That was so funny. I'm like, that is just hysterically funny. To have this guy come down with mariachi Stars and Stripes Forever. That was just,
I will say,
the duality of that just was really good.
The one thing about them purchasing AAA that concerns me was actually on our TV while this was going on and helped Rey Fenix up after the match. I still don't like Vikingo because he does flips.
I'm amazed that Vikingo got on TV. I will say that of all the people I expected to show up at WrestleMania, Vikingo was not on the list, and it cracks me up because did that not feel like yet another middle finger to Tony Khan? Just
yeah, but you don't have to hire certain people just to get one. Getting one, I have no problem with Triple H teabagging Tony Khan into oblivion for funsies and for the lulz. I love that. But not with this particular dildo.
But I love the message of, we'll even take your garbage people and make them valuable people.
Hey, what they've done with Rey Fenix and Penta so far, if they can do that with them, then I will wait and see what they do with Vikingo.
Well, the Vikingo might just still be in AAA. It's not like AAA's losing their TV time. You know, they're just another subsidiary. They're now just...
They'll actually have championships that aren't made of cardboard.
Yeah. And it was kind of weird hearing about all of the Lucha, the AAA credentials that Penta and Phoenix now have. Mm-hmm. As a result, like the fact that they're able to mention all of that, to also making sure that they have a little backup credentials in case Kenny Omega ever decides to jump ship. Mm-hmm. Which may or may not be talked about in the near future, but that's something else altogether.
Please, Kenny.
I don't have any sources behind that. That is mere conjecture, by the way.
It is conjecture and me on my knees begging.
Yeah, I have no sources. I have no sources. I have no sources, and he has sore knees. So
Yeah.
But in any case, this match, Donut White was here.
And the crowd booed.
And the crowd booed, and boy, did they have a lot of UFC fucks here.
Yeah.
During both nights, and by the way, while we're talking about things in the crowd, every match, during an entrance, let's go to a bunch of dinguses in brand shirts. This match is sponsored by these fucking guys. Hooray for corporate sponsors! Woo! Corporate sponsors.
Interrupt a wrestling show for 100 commercials in the crowd.
I'm dressed up like an ice cream cone. Look at me. Like, my God. And this wasn't carpet bombing the mat with sponsors bad enough.
I actually don't mind the logos all over the mat.
I don't either. I really don't either.
It makes me think of WCW, and UFC's been doing it forever. But them constantly like, and such did this in the crowd, and then it got old real quick.
Oh, and the
Like,
Emperor of Saudi Arabia was there too, and he got booed pretty badly. Or Turkey,
Yeah.
or for some, I forget where he was from. Was that Turkey guy? Was his name Turkey? Somebody said Turkey.
No, it was Pat McAfee, and when he said that, I was like, oh, Pat.
Yeah, I don't know where it was, but the Emperor of somewhere stand was there, and and Skylar is gonna hate hearing this podcast, and he's gonna despise this exact portion of the podcast right here, but that's okay. So did Vegas.
Yeah.
But in any case, there was a great springboard into a Northern Lights.
Mm-hmm.
Then El Grande Gable Cano hit a reverse 450.
I screamed.
That was insane.
That was absolutely fucking insane.
That was maybe the spot of the weekend.
Yes, I was like, oh, he's just doing the moonsault. Oh my God, he's still going. I was like, stop spinning before you die.
And I loved how Wade and Pat and Cole were trying to figure out how many degrees that was.
Trying to figure out what to call it.
Yeah, that was wild.
That was the most jaw-dropping holy shit spot of the entire weekend.
Yeah, that was crazy. And this match was actually pretty good. You know, it kept going. And then finally, Phoenix goes to hit a running knee on Gable's metal plate on his head, and Phoenix sold. And
then Chad put the ankle lock on the wrong leg.
Well, but nobody was paying attention enough to care. And that was enough to get it. And, yeah, I liked the heat that this got. You know, and it was a great finish to build up what Gable's doing with this thing. You know, say what you want about the gimmick, but this was great to further all of that along.
I thought this was good, but it kind of felt like a TV match. That's one thing about this particular night. It felt like a bunch of good TV matches.
Well, and it's also kind of part of the difficulty of having the main event that you do and segmenting this show out the way that you do.
It's always going to make one night feel more important than the other.
It's also disappointing because, like, if you have this much time to make these shows and you have all this time because you took 2 extra weeks to build all these feuds, why does it feel like 3/4 of this was just made the night before?
It might have a lot to do with the fact that The Rock was like, yeah, I'll totally be part of your WrestleMania. Totally. I'm not winking. I'm not winking uncontrollably. I'll totally be there. Totally. Why am I getting farther away? No one knows. Can you still hear me? Yeah, I'm still coming to Mania.
You just don't worry about me. I'm just gonna get in this car that's too fast and furious.
Yeah.
See you later.
I'll send my proxy. Don't worry about it.
Vin Diesel shows up. I am Groot. And I don't think he understood what the through line of that was. But in any case, good for Vin Diesel for being whatever you're doing right now. I don't know what you're doing, but shout out to Vin Diesel. If you're listening to us, then I'm quite surprised.
Vin Diesel should have a tag team with Kevin Nash called Vin and Diesel.
You certainly can. And managed by Raquel Rodriguez. And we'll get to her, but speaking of the ladies.
Speaking of ladies that I don't want to see anymore.
Oh boy.
Good Lord.
This was my least favorite match of night one. As much as I hated that finish with Gunther tapping out quick, the match itself was quite good. There were times this match was good.
Brief instances where I was like, they got something here.
But most of this was
Tiffany Stratton trying to wrestle with a broomstick that hated her.
It's Tiffany Stratton trying to wrestle with a broomstick that keeps changing the position and location of the broom bristles. And
my handle's here. Now my handle's here. Now my handle looks way different than it did the last couple iterations.
I'm not even sure Charlotte can see out of her eye sockets anymore. Like, that's how much that face has been lifted. It's just... And the first thing I wrote down was, I don't really care about this match.
Well, they haven't given you a reason to care other than them taking weird shots at each other.
Other than their actual shoot that they had against each other.
Okay. This was my skip, not gonna lie. I had it muted and I
were planning this skip from the moment Charlotte won the Rumble. So
Because fuck her. Because fuck her. And honestly, with this happening the way it did, it was a complete waste of time.
No, I wouldn't blame you for skipping this at all, to tell you the truth.
The only reason why I went back and watched it is because Tiffany won. Because at the very least, at least Tiffany got this win and looked like she went through a meat grinder afterwards.
Yes, she did.
Because she got so many fucking potatoes that Charlotte's probably going to start coming out thinking that she's Becky Lynch now.
Yeah, I don't know when that particular shot that busted her face open happened, but
she had a bruise, her lip was busted, it looked like she chipped a tooth. Jesus.
Yeah, she was
it did look badass on her. It did make her look badass. But I went back and watched this specifically because Tiffany won. My God, this match was a sloppy Joe. And Tiffany was trying. And it was a different kind of trying from Charlotte. Tiffany was trying to save it and Charlotte was trying to ruin it.
Well, and I do think that to some degree, like, there's something to be said about a match being stiff and having potatoes and it being and looking like a struggle. But it shouldn't look like a struggle to cooperate. I mean, it shouldn't look like a cooperation at all, but like, at the same point, it looked like they were struggling to cooperate with each other. It was Charlotte. They kept saying that she didn't have any ring rust. Yeah, she did.
Charlotte's in-ring has been largely atrocious ever since she lost to Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania 39.
Yeah.
That was the last good match she's had. Every other match she's had after that has been straight up ass.
Well, and I like that they got the Mattel to okay the Barbie box for Tiffany Stratton.
Pretty cool.
Charlotte looked like, you will not get this reference, but for the Final Fantasy X-2 folks out there, Charlotte looks like she stole Yuna's flower super dress sphere, which you can look up on the internet, kids, if you want to know what I'm talking about. We get a back suplex on the barricade. Then Charlotte attempts a neck breaker, I think.
Okay. This kneeling neck breaker that she loves there are moves that Charlotte just loves that have never looked good and will never look good. That neck breaker is one of them. That Irish curse backbreaker sort of is another one of them. There are some moves that she just loves that never look good. It's just now that she kind of sucks in the ring now, they look worse.
Well, thankfully, now that her knee is shredded, she can't do the moonsault anymore.
Well, she never could do the moonsault, and that was the problem.
Well, I know, but I was saying, speaking of moves that she does all the time that never land.
Except that one time where she nearly killed, what was it? Who was it that she nearly crushed?
Io Sky with her foot.
Yeah.
And, well, and then we get a sit-out powerbomb that was like, okay. We get a second spine buster. This has been clunky, I wrote down.
Mm-hmm.
Tiffy's got juice. Once Charlotte started selling the knee, this got a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And the crowd started getting into it a little bit more. The PME got the knees up after the figure 4, which was nice. Then, good Lord.
The second I saw this, I was like, oh, Sean is going to hate this.
Now, this match, there was a matchup that Trish Stratus beat the shit out of a young lady named Jackie Gata.
Yep.
For having it looked not too dissimilar to this.
Yeah.
This is from a allegedly 14-time champion doing a worse than wrestling school bad move on the biggest stage of them all. If I were agenting that match, I would be furious, namely at myself for even conceiving that spot, knowing what the natural selection has always looked like. But I'd be pissed because that spot sucked, and I was terrified she was going to win with it, but thankfully she didn't win with it, and I am very grateful for that. But it's sad how often that they've used that natural selection to have her win matches, and I thought they might rely on it because her knee is so messed up too. Because she doesn't have the moonsault now, and but
he completely missed her except for her hair, kind of question mark.
Yeah, and
it looked bad.
It was bad, and it was getting worse, and then it ended mercifully.
Yeah, especially. Literally, one thing that looked almost as bad, every time Tiffany Stratton tried the Finlay rolling senton, my God, she got closer to the ground every time she did it because Charlotte was not helping at all.
No, she wasn't.
Sandbag City.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. And then a PME wins it, and the crowd is finally awake.
No, the crowd collectively was like, thank God.
Yeah, that's literally people did not want Charlotte to win that belt at all. But Tiffany looked badass at the end of this match. I'll give her credit for that. If this was to get Tiffany over like this, then mission accomplished. But I get the feeling that it was just Charlotte being a bitch.
On that note, Charlotte, can you just fuck off?
Forever?
Seriously. Can you go away and never come back?
Come back for your Hall of Fame induction, and that's it.
Yeah, and we're not going to watch it. And you'll probably get booed, and you'll cry about it. And your face will look completely different once again. But I so bad. There's so many people after this WrestleMania that I never want to see again.
Well,
I don't ever want to see Charlotte again. I don't ever want to see Travis Scott again. I don't ever want to see The Rock again. But Charlotte, a message from wrestling fans in general: go away. We don't like you. Your matches are terrible. You are shoved down our throats constantly. You are the same exact person, the same exact gimmick that you've been for over a decade at this point.
Just different faces.
Yeah. Get some help.
She's cosmetically changing gimmicks, but she's not changing actual gimmicks. And yeah, but the right person won this at least. Tiffany is going to gain some momentum off this at least.
Yeah.
And, but when it came to the quality of match compared to the rest of both nights, this was one of the weakest matches on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And
again, Tiffany tried really hard. She tried. This was all Charlotte.
This was namely Charlotte that was the problem here, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
as you know, Tiffany, I can't believe I missed Nia Jax.
What world have we? What reality have we fallen into?
Seriously, what?
When we're like, Nia Jax saved me.
Yeah, I literally. Where is her hole? And
well, this is the part where Scott would be like, okay, next match.
All right, moving on. Next match, moving on. Yes. Nope. Well. Anyway, now we move on to the Paul Heyman custody battle.
Paul Heyman on a pole ladder match.
This is a Paul Heyman is we get into this matchup here. Boo, Skylar would say. And
applause for me.
And I will say I must say that I am sad that Skylar's not here because you know what he would tell me to do. Mm-hmm. Because this is his bit, but in his absence, I guess I will have to say it. On this edition of What the Fuck is Seth Rollins Wearing?
At this point, before it came out, I was like, all right, Mom, Andy, I want you to tell me what you think of what Seth Rollins is wearing. And they were like, you're the person who says that he comes out wearing weird stuff, right? And I was like, oh, you have no idea.
Well,
and then he walked out, and Mom said he looked like a Velcro trash bag.
Yeah, I said a hefty garbage bag is what I had. I had a hefty garbage bag is what I said. But, well, the thing was earlier in the night, Seth Rollins had a robe that looked like it was made out of a bunch of Valentine's Day teddy bears. And it was just like, it was just this weird red tatter. I'm like, what is that? But he takes off his garbage bag after wielding that gigantic flamethrower, which was also a middle finger to Tony Khan. We will make everything that you have cool. But Seth gets this big-ass flamethrower, and then he gets this adorned in all white, and I must say, the jacket was on point. I did like the way that Seth looked after he took the garbage bag off.
After he took his sauna suit off.
Yes. And
so Christian was trying to lose some weight so he could compete for the what was it, the lightweight championship all those years ago?
That's right. Or when Matt Hardy was trying to compete for the cruiserweight belt and he just kept taking off more and more clothing.
Yeah, Sethitude 1.0.
Yes. As that's the way it is.
I want to go back even before Seth's entrance. The video package for this match was
great,
immaculate.
Great.
It was perfection.
Yeah, and they really did a great job.
While I loved it, it also made me sad because I'm like, what is something that I always whine and complain about, Sean?
Braun Strowman.
Besides that,
which one? There's a lot of them.
Which genre of music works really well with wrestling?
I believe that you love Irish folk tunes to go in, and everyone should have Irish folk tunes. Instead.
Metal and rock work so well with wrestling.
Yes, they do.
And I actually went and I listened to this song, and it's on my YouTube playlist now. It was "Sail Into the Black" by Machine Head, a band I've never heard of before, but I'm interested in listening to more of their stuff. And we go from that to the theme of the show, which is Fiend. Fiend. Fiend, Fiend, Fiend.
Well, you got to cater to the basic bitches, Joshageddon. It can't just be for wrestling fans.
I miss the days where the theme of WrestleMania was from Limp Bizkit. I long for those days.
You want a little puddle of mud action?
Yes, I would prefer that. The theme of SmackDown used to be from my boy Marilyn Manson.
How about Drowning Pool?
Wrestling and metal fit like a glove. It's perfect for wrestling. Pop and like this hip hop, this modern pop goo-ga, it just does not work. I don't care that this is like supposed to be like the casino like thing because it's Las Vegas. I mean, last year they had for the past, they keep bragging about how The Weeknd has done the theme song for WrestleMania for the past 85 WrestleManias. That's not a good thing. You're telling me that the theme song for the biggest show of the year has been shit 6 years in a row.
But Joshua, the main event had the artist of that song in it. So he's a main event wrestler.
And the main event sucked. But thank you for helping me prove my own point, Sean. I love having you on the show. But and to make it even worse, the previous pay-per-view, the theme song was done by Poppy, and that was great. And even during the promotion of that show, they would promote WrestleMania and thing. I'm so fucking angry. I'm sure you haven't noticed.
This is what you can expect when that song was really annoying. It was so very annoying. I don't see how that got to the top of any Billboard chart. But
because people's music taste has never been worse than it is today.
But then we get the CM Punk package.
This was also phenomenal.
I'm so happy for CM Punk, man.
Me too.
Not only was this a main event at WrestleMania, but this main event at WrestleMania was basically all about him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was perfect. They had the kill switch engage. This fire burns to go through his entire career to build up to this point.
When that song started playing,
I was pumped.
I had the biggest grin on my face.
I was pumped. Yeah, that was a big moment for sure.
Yeah.
I was really happy with that. And he comes out and there's In Living Color. In Living Color.
Mm-hmm.
And they did the song.
Of the two bands that played people out to the ring on WrestleMania, this was the much better one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Damien. We'll talk about your boy in a second.
We'll get to you. All fries for the Judgment Day. That's still open, ladies and gentlemen. We can do it. It could still happen. Especially because who the hell knows what Damian Priest is going to be doing now. But in any case, Two Guys Burgers and Fries is still on the table.
Mm-hmm.
But we get this, and by the way, for those of you who didn't know what Paul Heyman custody battle meant for some reason, it's Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns versus CM Punk in the main event of night one.
Mm-hmm.
And we get through this, and then it starts deteriorating pretty fast, but man, this match was fun.
This was my favorite match of the entire weekend.
It was very fun. We got a great Triple H stare spot. We got a trash can shot that nearly concussed me watching it.
Yep.
That was, dear God, did the sting on that. The Roman Reigns splash as Punk and Rollins were getting back to ringside was really cool.
That was nuts. And the theme of this show, accidentally running into fans.
Yeah.
Because he clipped a few pedestrians with that dive.
Well, and it's not like WWE doesn't have the money for compensation.
There's going to be so many lawsuits after the show.
That's okay. They know how to settle.
And they don't have CIW's gimmick of some weird space anomaly absorbing or sucking away the fans' threatening lawsuits.
That's right. That's right. We just have happenstance. And you know what's So, but then we get this great neckbreaker DDT combo that was nice, and then we get a Doomsday device, which was a tad surprising, but a welcome surprise. You could tell the quality of wrestler is so much different in this match compared to everyone else just by how amplified all the punches were.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was just, their strike level was terrific. They did the spear degree spot that they do in every match they have ever.
This one looked, honestly, this was the best it has looked.
It looked good. It looked good. And the stomp got a 2 count. Punk got a little juice on the mouth. Heyman looked torn or constipated. They get a shield, but Seth is trying to encourage Roman to use the shield bomb. He goes, get him up, and then he goes, no, I'll just do it myself. And then, you want to talk about stealing CIW gimmicks. I'm pretty sure I just had somebody go through 2 tables. So Roman Reigns decides he's going to put 2 men through 2 tables.
Dude, these tables did not want to break.
No, they didn't. But break they did.
These bumps looked so painful.
Yeah, they were pretty rough. They were pretty rough. But it all looked terrific. Still, I mean, the pain looked terrific. And I'm sure it was painful too. Then we get a spear for a 2 count. That goes this, and at this point, these guys are just running, and the crowd is finally invested in something.
Yeah, finally the crowd is like, the crowd was kind of like, finally, we're at what we came to see. And I'm like, you had the whole rest of the show. Whatever, fine.
Yeah, what rest of the show? We get a Seth sharpshooter with Punk bleeding, which I thought was a nice little homage to Brett and Austin, who got inducted over the weekend. So, I don't know whether that was intentional, especially with Punk bleeding from the mouth, but I thought that was a nice little touch. I love how distraught Heyman looked throughout all of this.
There was a video on X that I saw that was like fan footage of him just depressed walking around with SpongeBob music. You know that?
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then we get this great GTS into a spear, into a stomp.
And we get a triple down.
And Heyman gets the chair. And at this point, I knew what they were doing.
I kind of had a suspicion, but at this point, me, my mom, and Andy, we were glued to the TV.
Now, the reason I say I knew what they were doing is that I heard a lot of people on the internet talk about what the outcome of this was. Prior to this happening, I heard a lot of marks calling for this to happen exactly. But when it was But when it was Seth just sitting in the corner, laying around, as Heyman is choosing between the two, I'm like, nah, this ain't going to be between these two. So Heyman goes to decide, do I, red pill or blue pill? And I only say red pill because of Roman Reigns' red undies.
He chose the Tyler Black pill.
Yes, that's the biggest black pill of all.
Yes.
As he tosses the thing to the chair to Punk, and then he crotches Punk with one of the weirdest, weakest looking low blows I've ever seen. But Heyman has never been known for his physical work.
But then he was like, hey, remember that dude breaking up the Shield? Do that. His low blow on CM Punk was pretty weak.
Yeah.
This low blow on Roman, though, dude was trying to give Roman a prostate exam.
Yeah. Well, and I love when he hit Punk, he's like, I'm sorry, he's my tribal chief. Nothing I can do. And then he just...
What do you want me to do about it?
And, and then crotched Roman Reigns and chose Seth after all. And Seth gets his stomp, and that's that, after yet another Shield homage. And Seth wins, he leaves with Paul, and that's the end of the show. And I will say this, we said it at, I think it was in one of the podcasts we did recently about the state of wrestling. I just don't know where they're gonna go with this because Seth doesn't need Paul.
I agree, but we'll see.
It's a new direction for them. And it's something different that I think Paul needs something different as well. He lends himself more to being a heel manager than kind of sitting with either of the baby faces of Punk and Rollins, or Punk and Reigns, rather.
And Seth hasn't been a full-blown heel in a while.
Yeah, so I'm sure this is going to lead to something very interesting and good down the line. that is going to ultimately lead to some level of big match between probably Roman and Seth, because I think they're probably done with Punk and Seth for the time being. Because I think that slowly but surely Punk is going to make his way to John Cena.
Yeah.
But that's just speculation at this point. But all in all, it was a good triple threat match.
I loved it. It was my favorite match of the entire weekend.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. It was definitely my favorite match of night one. You know, but that's not to take anything away from a lot of other matches on night one that were better than they had any right to be. You know, this show had a lot of matches that the crowd didn't love, but actually over-delivered for what they were bringing to the table. So let's hear at the halfway point, give our records for WrestleMania Night 1, which Skylar thankfully has already submitted, at least in the chat, that he gave this I believe, a 7 for this night. So why don't we go with the ratings for Night 1? Let's start with me, because we'll finish off with you at WrestleMania Night 2.
Yeah, you got to continue stealing the New Day's gimmick of being Mr. Positivity.
That's right. Well, I actually just agree with Skylar on that. This was a good Night 1. It wasn't great. I enjoyed the show overall. I didn't really have a ton to complain about. I had some things to complain about, but I didn't have a ton to complain about. It was just, 'twas a fine show. You know, that's about as much as I could say about it. There really wasn't much to write home about for WrestleMania, but all in all, some of the matches that you thought wouldn't deliver did deliver, and I gave it a 7 as well. I thought it was fine. It was fine.
Me personally, I also thought it was fine, but for WrestleMania, that kind of irks me a teeny bit. Nothing really felt like WrestleMania until we got to the main event. Some of the finishes were a little suspect, and Charlotte Flair sucks, and I wish it would go away. But the main event really saved it. Honestly, I was thinking this show was kind of like a 5 out of 10 for up until we got to the main event. The main event helped a lot. So I'm not going to go quite as high as a 7, but I will give this show, Night 1, a solid 6 out of 10.
And for the Triple H scale, that's not the worst thing in the world either. Because remember, we were giving these shows 3s and 2s.
And 0s.
And 0s. Back at the Vince era. So, you know, perspective is a real thing.
No matter what our complaints are on this show, by the way, nothing on either night was anywhere near as dog water as the entirety of WrestleMania 38.
Yeah, perspective goes a long way when it comes to grading a show like this.
Yeah, I will take WrestleMania 41, the entire thing, like 100 times in a row over one more viewing experience of 38.
Yes. And now that we've wrapped up Night 1, and Skylar gave it a 7. Now, for the fans of the Totally Awesome podcast who have not experienced any interruptions at all, theoretically, we are going to, here on the CMP, take our first commercial break. And when we come back, we are going to start up WrestleMania Sunday, the second half of our podcast. So stay tuned for all of the exciting action in a different video than this one. But rest assured, you are going to get the rest of it. WrestleMania Saturday, thank you all for coming. We'll be right back right after this.